Thank you very much for inviting me to be here and being a part of this. As Joe mentioned, we have been friends for a very long time. And you know, I have to tell you, my professional life, I've worked in, tech companies. So think Facebook, Yahoo, Google, that kind of stuff. I never would have thought I'd be up here talking at a healthcare conference. So this is a little story about that journey. As Joe mentioned, we've been friends for a long time. I like to move around, but if I got to stay close to the mic, then I will. So we met in high school because we were in a group of friends from different schools here in the area, and we all hung out on the weekends. And we found that we had two things in common that really brought us together. One is that we're the youngest members of large Catholic families. And in my case, I'm the youngest by a big margin. My next youngest sibling is 10 years older than me. And so my lovely family used to like to joke and call me the oops kid, which, family dynamics are awesome, right? And so then we had this second thing in common, and that was what Joe described. His father had MS. His mother was the primary caregiver during that period of time, and Joe was a middle-aged teenager growing up in that environment. In my case, my dad had ALS, which wasn't very well understood at the time. In fact, he wasn't fully diagnosed until after he passed away. But similarly, my mother was the primary caregiver, taking care of him in home, like a lot of people here are talking about. And I was growing up in the middle of that environment. And I, looking back, I probably should have thought about this. I didn't know at the time, but this idea of caregivers would be a repeating theme in my personal life. So years later, I am now living in San Francisco. I'm working for Facebook. I have a family. My wife and I have, three daughters. So I have three daughters. I have three sisters. I am surrounded by women. And so by this point, my mother's elderly and starting to, decline. And she falls and breaks a hip. And that begins a process that I'm sure all of you are fairly familiar with. During rehab, she starts to show signs of dementia. She goes from a independent living facility to an assisted living facility to a full care facility. And towards the end, it got to a point where she didn't even recognize her own kids, which is kind of tough. Maybe there's some normalcy in the sense of the elder, component, but still no less difficult for the families that are going through it and for the caregivers that are taking care of that person. So returning home to San Francisco from a celebration of life here, about 4 months later, I had a daughter go through something pretty significant. But before that, my friend Brian called me. Now, Brian and I worked together at Facebook for many years, working on mobile projects and such. And we had both left and were working on new projects by the time this happened. And he called me because his mother had fell down some steps and broke a bone. And he wasn't calling me about work, he was calling me to vent. He was calling me because he knew that I had just gone through something that he was about to begin. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to help. He was living in San Francisco, his mother was somewhere else. And ultimately he had to quit his job and move back home to take care of his mother, which, fortunately he could do. And very unfortunately, we came to learn is very common and all too common. So, one thing I started to notice at this point is that family caregivers are the doers. They're the connective tissue in the healthcare system. They are the one constant in between multiple specialists and therapists and rehab and this and that. The one thing that remains constant. And they really only have two things in common. One is a lot of love, and two is a sincere desire to help. Very little training and support. So now it's the summer of 2016. And in August, my daughter, 13 at the time, develops a life-threatening condition. She was in UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital for an extended period of time. And like a lot of fine institutions, they want to tell you that they're one of the best hospitals in the country. And I'm sure that medically speaking they are, as well as a lot of the organizations that you work with. When she got better enough to leave, a case manager, the day that we were released, walks up to me and hands me 23 pieces of paper and says, here's what you need to do, good luck, pats me on the back and turns around and walks away. And I was in a state of shock. Like, on the one hand, she was good enough to go home, and on the other hand, I have, 1,000 questions about what I need to do and nowhere to turn and how to help, right? And that began another 6 months of, yet another series of specialists and all this, unfortunately, I bet every one of you has a story that's kind of similar, to this. Fortunately speaking, that daughter is now awesome, totally healthy, everything's great. She was 13 at the time, she's 17 now. Very normal and all good, excuse me. But that day when we were leaving, on the way home, I called my friend Brian. And I said, this experience we're going through is terrible. Like the preparation, the support for the family caregiver is just awful. And we need to do something about it. And that was the day that we started Outpatient. And so I'll get to that in a second. But the health system is the way it is. From the payer to the provider to the patient, it's just huge and complex and messy, and it's all the things and more that you know better than I do. And two guys from Facebook are not going to disrupt this industry. You are going to do that. You and everybody else that you know in this industry at conferences like this. But I'll tell you what we can do. We can definitely help the family caregiver. We can make the life of those people a whole lot better. They are the biggest afterthought, the least supported population in the biggest industry in the world, and we want to help them. And that's the mission of Outpatient. And I'll show this video here in a second. Now I want to shift gears and talk about consumer expectation. You've heard a lot of people talk about the consumerization and technology and all of that. Well, I've, for the past 30 years, spent my life knee-deep in consumer technology. I've worked with some of the most innovative companies in the world, and my professional friends work for companies like Google and Amazon and Apple and Uber and Lyft and Pinterest and Snapchat, and the list goes on, Salesforce, etc. Through that experience, I've worked with people that build the products that you guys use every day, and it's been my great fortune to be involved in that. But one of the things that I've gained is an innate appreciation for what is consumer expectation. So recently I had to change some flights for a series of, for 4 different people for yet another family emergency, medical emergency. This was like 2 months ago. And so for 3 of the flights, I had to call Southwest Airlines. And from the live person who answered the phone, to the conversation of what I needed to do, to the confirmation of a change at no cost, to hanging up, it took 5 minutes. And for the one other flight, I had to call United Airlines. And from the on-hold message to a cranky person telling me how many fees I was going to have to pay for a medical emergency, to finally getting it done and so forth, took 50 minutes. So what's your reaction when I say Comcast customer service versus Ace Hardware or Southwest Airlines or United? That's consumer expectation. And so imagine renting a car from the airport to come to this very event. And you get in your new car and you plug your phone in and your contacts come up and your Spotify account comes up and you can say, hey Siri, send me to the Renaissance Hotel. And then you turn over to your left to roll down the window and it's a hand crank and you gotta like crank it down, right? So on my phone right here, I have my ESPN app. I gotta follow the Cardinals, I gotta watch what happened with the Blues last night. I've got my Uber app, I've got all my messaging apps, I've got, all the other things that I use every day. And then I've got this John Muir Health app from my facility in California. I can't even log into it, and I'm supposed to be good at this stuff. I was actually quite impressed that the guy here from JP Morgan had an app that he could use that was provided by any kind of health organization. And I hate to say that, but I've talked to so many people in your world that have told me the same thing. They don't even know how to use their own app. Well, so anyway, I'm not really here to harp on that, but I will tell you some things that I see every day in my world. And that is that today, this group of people, your adult generation today, is the very first generation in history with ubiquitous access to this device and an expectation of how it's supposed to work. And if you're going to try to help people, starting with the one thing that every one of them has is a great place to begin. Now, this is new in the last 10 years, probably something you know. What you might not know is that in less than the last 5 years, the usage patterns of mobile devices has changed dramatically. From a 12-year-old to a 75-year-old, they all have the same device, and they all know how to use it. And you know, the pattern of use between them all is basically the same. Time spent, number of apps, usage patterns. But what's different might be the apps they use, but everything else is the same. So they know how to use what it is they're doing. And if you think about it, do you know anyone between those ages that doesn't have a smartphone? They may not have an iPhone, but they definitely have a smartphone. That's across the world. That is a global thing across the world. So because of personal experience, we started Outpatient. It's a mobile all-in-one collaboration tool for caregivers. And we first launched it last September as a free product for anyone to use. Now, it's freely available right now. You could download it on your phone. It's available on Android and iOS on mobile phones and tablets. And we launched it as a free product because we wanted to see how people would use it, what they would do, what would they ask for, who are they, how are they similar, how are they different, what are the things about them that make them unique or whatever. And you know, we're a product and engineering team. That's what we do. We're building these kinds of products. We have the best team in the world for doing exactly what we're doing. And you know, we put it out there, we listen to feedback from people, and then we iterate very quickly and give them back what they asked for. And we're pushing out app updates at a rate of every 2 weeks. So 8 months in, we're on version 16 today. That's fast in the mobile world. That's really fast. But what it's allowed us to do is to show caregivers who are leaning in and they desire to help other people, including other caregivers. And so as you can imagine, once we started getting this in the hands of people that cared, they started telling all their friends about it. And it's become quite viral, actually. So 8 months in today, we have users in all 50 states and 15 countries. We're growing quite rapidly. And recently, we started to create newer versions that are deployed in senior care. So one of the things we learned as we were looking at the people that are using this product is that there's a lot of similarities between family caregivers and professional caregivers. They have two things in common. They have a lot of love and a sincere desire to help, and they have an expectation of how this thing ought to work. And so our adoption curve there has actually been quite interesting over the last couple of months. But it's because caregivers are this group of people that hasn't been paid attention to very much. And when they understand that a group like us is actually listening to them and giving them something, and when we hear they request a feature and we tell them, hey, we heard you. We heard you. Here it is. It's awesome. And so I want to show a video. This is called Hillary's Story. She's one of our users.
Back in May, my mom got very sick. She had pneumonia and sepsis and was 5 weeks in the ICU. She had to learn how to breathe again, walk again, swallow, eat, and now she's home, but has been kind of hit with another big challenge. She's recently been diagnosed with oral cancer, and it's amazing how strong and positive she is, and I'm just blessed that I can be here with her to help her along the way. I like to take notes on everything that's happening, before it just didn't seem like everything was all together in one place, whether it was in a binder in my mom's hospital room or if it was just on my phone. It wasn't on some shared document where they could all look at it in time that it was happening. Now it's like instantaneous. You know, like if we're at the doctor, I write down everything I hear, the most important things that they would want to know, and then boom, it's shared and they can all see it and they get an alert about it or notification. And so my dad will say, I'll be in the car with my mom after an appointment. He'll say, how did the appointment go? And I can just say, look at your outpatient. If I'm not around 24/7, then my aunt's there or my dad or my brother, and then I feel more comfortable because I know that what's happening everywhere, you know, with her.
I think Hillary's having a lot of fun with the app, so maybe that's making her happier, and it really kind of gives you a path of what to do, what to write down, and you know that your information is getting to the people that love the person who's ill. They had a doctor's appointment this past Monday, which was for a serious issue, and there were already Hillary and her dad going. Hillary was writing down everything that the doctor was saying and what was going to be done and the next step and whatever, and that was so helpful to me to know right away, because I'm somebody who wants to know things right away, and had we not had it, I would have had to wait probably till they got home, and then I would have been a nervous wreck, and so it was fabulous.
I just want to be here to do whatever I can and spend as much time with her as possible. And me being here, I know that I'm doing all that I can for her.
So what we do with the Outpatient app, in addition to just making it easier for people to do what they need to do, is we try to give them names that make them feel good. So like, as you've heard, a lot of the terminology in healthcare sucks, especially for the people that are taking care of other folks, right? It really does. One of our advisors is the founder of WellPoint and Anthem Health, and he described the whole situation in insurance where they actually give a title or a name to that person who's taking care of her mother, and it's anxious worrier. When my mother was sick, that was my sister, 100%, absolutely. So one of the things we decided is, like, we got to give these people a compliment and make it happy. So they're champions, and in our app, all those people, all those caregivers are champions, and it's noted on the inside. Anyway, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's make it better.